do the sex.
Today's Masturbation Monday topic is what we learned, because I have a guest today, from attending the biggest queer women's / lesbian festival, I think in the U.S. or in the world. Do we know?
At least the U.S.
Anyways, it's a big fucking lesbian queer women's festival. Deanna, a.k.a. Ruby, my longtime guest off and on here, joined me and two of my other queer women besties who are in the back bedroom right now. We all decided to go on an adventure and attend the Dinah. Is it the Dinah Shore Weekend Festival or the Dinah?
It's the Dinah Shore Festival.
Yeah.
I think is the technical name. Yes.
And I haven't looked up the history on it, but it is one of the largest queer women's gathering weekends, I believe, that exists right now. We thought, what better way to explore our own sexuality than to throw ourselves into the mix. And so what we want to share with you today is the top things we learned while we were here. I don't know how many. We're just going to share what we learned. We learned a lot of shit. So I have a coffee somewhere, but we are running on a tight schedule and have to check out of our room here real quick. So we're just going to say cheers. Let's talk about
Cheers.
Diving into a bunch of lesbians. What was that like? All right, Deanna, pop off. What was the first biggest thing you learned?
I would say the first biggest thing I experienced was really that I came with some apprehension about body positivity and acceptance, because even though everything you read and everything they put out there is it's a very inclusive, safe space, my experience is even when it says that, there's still not. But it was really freeing to be very comfortable in my skin and not even have all of those intrusive thoughts about, oh, are they looking and saying, why are you in a two-piece? And I didn't experience that at all. The energy was so welcoming and accepting, and that was amazing. I've never been in a queer space that's been like that.
Yeah, super inclusive. I think for me, the biggest thing is I've never actually seen queer women's hookup culture. So if you're all wondering, was this a whole bunch of queer women getting together and getting it on? There's definitely some of that happening. Like, this is a place where a lot of single queer women come to meet other single queer women. But there are also couples that come. It's also about community. It's also about meeting new people, for sure. But people come here to, this was a very sex positive space. And I've never been in what I would call a queer women's space, where it was completely there's, when it comes to lesbians, there's the idea, the U-Haul sort of stigma. If you kiss a lesbian or a queer woman, then you're going to be married in a week, which is not inaccurate completely. No. But so coming here and actually seeing women really try each other out in a very positive, loving way was cool.
It was very cool.
So, the other thing I learned while I was here is when there's more than one woman in a bed, it's the women in the middle who get to dictate the temperature of the room. That's my rule I'm making up for any women out there listening. That is the rule. The person in the middle dictates the temperature of the room. What else? There were so many things we learned. Oh, I finally found, the biggest one is I think I have always felt like I didn't really fit into the queer community as a high femme woman who doesn't appear to be queer. I have oftentimes felt out of place and unwelcome. And I don't know if that's just living in Portland, where it's more prevalent, where when women are queer, there's a presentation that maybe signal to one another. And I just want to be myself. And I was here this weekend. It's the first time I have ever been in a queer space where I felt completely seen as I am. And I learned that I am a type of queer woman. What is my type?
Black cat.
I'm a black cat. And I'll tell you what, I learned what I was and I owned what I was, and it went pretty well.
I would say it was successful.
Yeah, it was, I got to dance. I got to dance with a lot of beautiful, wonderful, interesting, intelligent, sexy women.
I can dance in a pool for 3 to 4 hours without getting out.
Yes. Yesterday, so there were 3 or 4 pool parties that we went to that went basically all afternoon long. And yeah, we danced in a pool amongst a sea of lovely queer women for 3 hours. Something I realized that I thought was interesting, I had never been to, I guess, a real pool party before.
Yeah, me either.
A
lot of firsts this weekend.
A lot of firsts this weekend. I had never been to a real pool party before, and I certainly had never been to a queer women's pool party before. And if I have one thing I want to offer to my listeners is, you want to go to one if you haven't been to one. I mean, the queer ladies know how to party at the pool. Something else we learned and we want to talk about, where generally one of the things that was lovely about going to this festival is like, it's kind of one of the few experiences queer women have where they can be seen as they are without being questioned, and they can connect with one another, because out in the wild, it's hard to know who's queer and who's not. And what's lovely about all these women coming together is everyone really does watch out for each other. And it's one of the few spaces women can be in where you're drinking and clubbing and partying where you feel safe, because there are no cis men around. There are no men there lurking and looking for women. But what we did learn is that even within the queer femme community, there is misogyny. And one of the ways it showed up was...
so that was last night at the closing party. And there was this sweet little petite girl. Poor thing, had way too much drink. And there was this individual there that was kind of pushing her into people, and then she just like started grinding on them, and you could tell they were really like getting off on it, and they were with a few others that were really, it was almost like a game to them. It was very predatory. And at one point, I thought they were getting her water, and they were just giving her drinks.
So we really learned that the same sort of toxicity that we see more often coming from men who are kind of like want to pimp out their woman to get another woman or other man. You can find that in our queer space. And so that was a little bit, I actually had to we had a save me sign, and I actually had to throw that sign because I was being like aggressively grinded upon, and I was clearly backing away, and the woman wouldn't stop. And so I actually had to use my sign, which I didn't think I was going to have to do. Other ways that misogyny, I think, still shows up in, I think, the queer femme culture is, I think a little bit when we saw a little bit in the hookup culture, one of the things I think is a lot of women learn how to flirt with and treat women from what we see from men.
Right.
And that can show up in how that plays out in the hookup culture. Like, the first night somebody hooking up with somebody and then kind of blowing, I saw that among several people, like blowing the person off just because they wanted to make sure they were available for other people, and then circling back around to them at the end of the festival if no one else available came about. And I think that's just a human thing. I think we're all learning how to navigate, relationships and sex within a societal structure that's based on a patriarchal view. And then a big thing, I guess I learned that ties back into what I learned in the beginning is one of my things is I don't want to alter my look in order to be accepted as queer. And I think that a lot of queer people feel like they have to look a certain way. Well, to be identified, I think, but also to fit in. And I was very much like, I want to be myself. And I really thought there was not a space that existed where I could just be myself and be seen and accepted as queer. And I had that opportunity this weekend, and it really was life-changing for me.
Yeah. I think it was a huge contrast to what we have in the Portland area. Especially with one thing I've experienced is when you're in a queer women's space where you have bi women, pan women, queer identifying women, lesbians, that lesbians, once they find out, especially if you're like a queer woman that's in a hetero-facing relationship, as soon as they find that out, they like kind of back off. And my very first experience was getting on the plane in San Francisco, and this really cute boy, B-O-I, asked for a piece of gum, and we started chatting, and it was brought up when we were talking about each other, and I expected that once I brought that up, it would shut down, and it didn't. The conversation kept going. It's the first time I've ever experienced that.
The other thing I learned is that I am definitely moving more into the pansexual identity as opposed to the bisexual. I mean, even though the definition I use is the same, I recognize I really am just attracted to all humans. And then whether I am sexually attracted or not depends on the type of person they are. And here we we learned how many different categories of queer women are there? 20?
Yeah. 27.
It's kind of a fun thing. Black cat,
sporty, butch, lipstick, chapstick,
a Labrador retriever,
Yes.
golden retriever,
golden lab.
golden lab. I have learned that I definitely want a partner, regardless of gender, who is a golden retriever or a Labrador. Well, whatever. I want one of those. I think I also realized I am just, attracted to all different types. Everyone always asks me what is my type. I can now officially say I don't have a type.
Me too.
But I do know when it comes to emotionally, what I think, or attachment style, if you will, personality, I definitely want, I want a golden or a lab.
Yeah.
For sure. I need that. I need that sort of like excited, loving, interested energy.
Yeah.
It's hot.
Very.
Very. All right, what else? There's just so much that we learned, but we have to check out literally in 11 minutes. So we were pressed to even do this. What I learned is I still have so much more to learn. But for me, this was a weekend that really helped me find myself, solidify sort of my own identity, and feel comfortable in my own skin and confident, regardless of if I'm in a queer space or a heteronormative space or a mixed space. I feel like I am finally, I have arrived. And I have struggled. I've really struggled, especially in relationship with whether my last long-term relationship was with a cis man, but then, even when I've dated lesbians or queer women, I think when you aren't confident about who you are in every space, it can make it really hard to find and have a good connection with somebody. And I did find in my last relationship, there was so much struggle with like owning my identity, drawing my boundaries around it, and saying, here I am, you've got to accept me for who I am. And if you can't, then this isn't a thing. And I think that was something really that came out of this weekend for both of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This weekend really, I found a confidence I didn't think I would ever find in myself. I found myself for the first time open to people like seeing me as an attractive person, as a person that they would want to take the time to know. So yeah, my confidence probably skyrocketed this weekend, and I think it was really about the environment, and it was an environment where I also learned a lot about myself. It was a great experience.
I also learned that there's a whole bunch of kinds of sex I still haven't had. There's a lot of I guess when you get into the queer sex world, it's like just it's different.
just
It's
a
expansive,
vast
you know.
horizon.
So, what do we want to sum it up with? We gotta get out of here.
If you have not come to the Dinah and you are a queer woman, girl, get yourself here.
Seriously, highly recommend. It's super fun. If you know, whether or not you want to hook up with people, even if you just want to be in an environment where you're going to feel accepted, make great friends. I have so many wonderful new friends that we have people that are coming to our retreat, my bisexual women's retreat I'm putting on October 10th.
Yes.
We have people who are coming to that I'm going to be able to hang out with again. Definitely will be doing this again. That's it. Yeah.
That's it.
We're
Time to
here
check
and
out.
we're queerer than when we showed up.
Yep.
Yep. Definitely queerer than when we showed up. So, hey guys, if you have questions, comments, thoughts, especially if you're a queer woman out there that is wondering, what can I do to find myself, my place, understand myself better? This is it. Feel free to reach out to me with questions. Annette at talksexwithanette.com. If you are a man who's with a bi woman, and you want her to figure herself out, find herself, you want to support her in her journey, have her listen to this, have her reach out to me, Annette at talksexwithanette.com. And I guess I'm a little tired, a little out of it. It's been, 5 days of dancing, having some drinks, meeting people. Yeah. That's it. Here's our bisexual, pansexual revelation podcast. All right. Until next time, folks, I'll see you in the locker room.